Hey guys, super exciting. Welcome everyone to the very first episode of Springfield Leather's Make Something podcast. So I am super excited about this. We've got a new space. Just kind of want to introduce this a little bit. We took, not going to lie, Rusty's old office and we put a paint job on her and we put some lights up in here and some sound panels. And we now have an awesome studio to do regulated audio content because there's really nowhere else in the store that we can get that done. It's a loud place. But I am super excited to be here with Rainer from Renia, which I finally got right for the first time in my whole life. So welcome, Rainer. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. I know that you just got back from one of the fabulous trade shows that the Leathercraft Journal puts on down in Waco, Texas.
That is correct. Yes.
Yeah. Tell us about that. How was your weekend?
Well, certainly interesting. So usually what I try to do is I don't just do the show. So I get in a couple of days early, drop off the supplies that we sponsor for the workshop. Well, this year we sent the workshop supplies to Cheryl and Rhinelander, so she had a little more time to put everything together.
Nice.
She kind of insisted on that, which is fine. I understand it. So I usually have some time to take workshops there as well, take some classes. This time I didn't. Lots of interesting stuff there, certainly, but a lot of them I had already taken over the years. And some of them were just kind of so far out for me, stuff that I would most likely not end up doing anyway.
Sure.
So, but maybe next time. And I mean, I took a couple in Prescott earlier this year. I took a couple in Sheridan. So I mean, it's always exciting. The show itself, I think it's still growing. So I mean, I don't know. I don't have the exact number of vendors, but every year there's one or two more. They started out in 21 in that location with that show. And ever since then, I would say it has established itself pretty well. So it is the only one that they do in Texas.
Right.
And that was missing a little bit because Texans like to buy from Texans, stay in Texas, only deal with Texans if they can.
Well, Texas is hard to get out of.
It's a huge state.
Because it's huge,
right?
Yeah.
And there's pretty much, and it's one opinion certainly. Why would I leave? Right? There's everything here. So, and it is a huge place for leather crafting, certainly.
Yes, absolutely.
Saddlery, boot making, and so on. Although the professional boot and saddle makers, you see some of them. But most of them actually kind of gravitate towards the show in Wichita Falls. It's been around forever. And this is very much a crafters show, which is all right, which is fine for us.
Isn't the one in Wichita Falls that's more geared towards your saddle and your boot guys?
Right.
A little bit more specific.
Yeah. There's some crafters coming there as well, but it's the exception. It's not the norm.
Yeah.
The exhibitors are pretty similar anyway.
Yeah.
But it's just...
Well, you need the same leather to do craft or boots.
Exactly. But people tend to stick with their crowd, sort of.
For sure.
Yeah, that's just how
it is.
But yeah, it was good. It was a good weekend. And I would say some decent sales. And I managed to push some people towards... our distributors, and unfortunately plural, there's not just one, but Springfield Leather is definitely one of our most active distributors in this field.
Absolutely. And we love your guys' stuff. For those of you that maybe are not familiar with Renia yet, I know your company has been around for how many years?
It's 95 years this year.
95, which is incredible. But mostly you as a business in the past have been more geared towards your manufacturing for footwear, correct?
Well, manufacturing was always a small part of it, but it was
like
mostly
supplying the manufacturing for footwear, maybe.
No. Supplying, yes, but so we make adhesives, unrelated products, but most of those actually back in the day went into shoe repair, not so much shoe manufacturing.
Okay.
Shoe repair and bespoke shoe making. But of course, that industry has shrunk considerably over the past decades because back in the 50s, I mean, I know the numbers for Germany and for the United States, but other countries, it's probably similar trend. So in in Germany, we had in the 50s, we had around 50,000 shoe repair shops in the entire country. And now there's maybe 3,000 left.
Wow.
And I think for the States, it is similar. But
yeah,
the general problem is this, right? I mean, repairing a shoe, having a shoe repaired, first of all, it's not necessarily possible with every pair of shoes, or plausible, right?
Right.
Economically viable. And the other thing is, are you going to spend 100, 150, 200 bucks repairing a pair of shoes that cost you 20?
Correct.
I don't think so.
We're not buying shoes that are necessarily meant to be repaired anymore.
Exactly. Now, there's always going to be sort of a certain group of people who will have their shoes repaired.
Yeah.
Because if your pair didn't cost you $20, but 20 grand, and there are shoes like that, yes, or cowboy boots, you'll definitely have them repaired until they evaporate, right? I mean, you'll wear them forever, literally. That industry declined more and more and more. And we were the smallest player in that market back in the 50s.
Okay.
So we're kind of more or less the only player that's left, at least over in Germany. So what we did is we branched out into other fields like footwear, orthopedic footwear, bespoke orthopedic footwear with it, which is a big thing over in Germany. In Canada as well, not so much in the States. Depends a bit on the medical system, depends on the bit of prescription habits of doctors.
Yeah.
They can only prescribe what they know and what is available. And if that industry doesn't exist, it's a bit of a hen-egg problem. But that's a big thing. Insole manufacturing, bespoke insole making or insole manufacturing is a big thing. The hobby side is a thing that we started going into maybe 10, 15 years ago.
Okay.
And we expanded to other countries because just the German shoe repair market, we wouldn't be here anymore. We wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
So
there's just not enough business in that.
No.
Yeah. I know that's kind of an interesting correlation. Just last week, I was out on retail and we have a shoe repair store here in Springfield.
Right.
And we send them quite a bit of business. And they were recently, the guy that had owned it for the past 30 years was looking at retiring. And so he sold it to a father and son that were, it was the most fascinating little story. The father needed a pair of shoes repaired. And so he found our one little shoe repair spot. He went in and he's like, I spent 2 minutes talking about the repair that I needed and 20 minutes talking about the business and what was going on. And so he called up his son after that and was like, I think I found a thing for us to do.
Wow.
And so he retired from his longtime career and they bought this shoe store and they said they are like doubling foot traffic almost every month.
That's amazing.
And it was the orthopedic.
Yeah.
People have orthopedic needs
They do.
and there's no one really to produce that, or the people that are available are a year, 18 months out on that kind of thing. And whenever you have an orthopedic need, it's not really something that you want to put off
you need it
for the next year.
You need it right now because you're in pain, you're having trouble, you can't walk properly. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's an amazing story. And there is actually right now, I mean, this market has declined so much. The availability of shoe repairers has gone down so much that now there's openings, right?
Yep,
I mean,
there's a need.
There's towns where there is no possibility to have that done. They don't exist. So I'm going to have to advertise a little bit here. So there's a national organization called the Shoe Service Institute of America, or SSIA. It's an organization. It started out as an organization of wholesalers or finders, shoe finders. That's what they called.
Okay.
They find the supplies you need. That's why they call that.
Yeah.
Dates back 100 years or whatever that term. So it was founded by them back more than almost 120 years ago.
Oh wow.
And it's been around since then, but the wholesalers were there. Then there's suppliers. They produce stuff or they bring stuff in, and then there's the repairers. So they have been trying over the past couple of years to revive that industry a bit more. Sure, it's always been there. It will always be there, but it will sort of dwindle.
Right.
And they don't want that, obviously.
Right.
So they've invested in making training videos, all sorts of events, right? The suppliers contribute. They bring out new products. For instance, there are now soles that you can use to repair sneakers, which weren't available. There's our side of it. adhesives that can be used to repair shoes made from pretty much any material.
Yeah.
And many don't know that. And many people, many consumers don't know that this industry exists. So that's what they're working on, publicizing it a bit more. And also a lot of people have no idea that this is a viable business. Like those two you just talked about. And again, I mean, it's not really the industry you're active in, sort of. It intersects in a
absolutely
way. But it can be revived a little bit.
No, and I think that's, I mean, for somebody that's looking about how to actually make money with leather,
right?
You know, there's only so many avenues that you can go, and making belts and wallets is decently saturated. Yeah. Not that it's completely saturated, but you really you have to spend a lot of time pumping yourself up to get somebody to realize that you're, buy my wallet, buy my belt, as opposed to somebody searching you out because you could repair shoes. Exactly. And they were also talking about how prosthetics kind of in general, working in conjunction with prosthetics, making different coverings, different things, just to make them more appealing and kind of doing that little bit of custom along with, you've got the small bag repairs, maybe jacket repairs of if you're doing the leather work, and then
you can branch out from there, right? Yeah. I mean, I just repaired your belt, right? But look at these. I made these. Exactly. You want a new one too. And I mean, there is a big step from being able to repair or resole a shoe to actually making one.
Right.
But you can get that kind of training. So that's the next step. And why not? I mean, there's possibilities there if you're into it, if that is something you decide you want to do. And I'm not... I'm not going to talk about this country. I don't want to offend people, but I know in Germany, there's way too many college graduates who are very unhappy.
Yes.
They have jobs where they're working with their heads a lot and not with their hands.
Yeah.
But that is deep down.
I was literally...
That's what they want to do.
Yeah. Last night, I started listening. I'm a huge Dan Carlin fan, and he's a history buff guy, and he has a podcast called Hardcore History. And I was listening to the episode that they came out with, the addendum episode with Mike Rowe of Dirty Jobs. And he was talking to him. And that was one of the things that Mike brought out, is that you have all these college graduates, but they're really struggling to find work, frankly. Right. But then your trades are completely understaffed. We are not putting people in plumbing and welding and all of these things that are really essential to building infrastructure and, shoe repair or just we do, working with our hands, making things out of leather or contributing to an orthopedic system to actually help people.
Or working in a glue factory, right? That's a thing. I mean, we need people, I mean, just speaking about ourselves here, we need people who can work with their hands, who are willing to get their hands dirty, not that dirty, a little sticky maybe, but who can also think on their feet, right? We don't need somebody who just, like in that old Charlie Chaplin movie, Modern Times, right, where he's tightening the screw on every little part for 10 hours on end.
Yeah.
That job doesn't exist anymore.
Right. There's a machine doing that.
There's a machine doing that. Yeah. But in manufacturing or in trade jobs, there's a big need for people who are good with their hands and are also smart.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's how you survive there.
Yeah.
But
you have to be able to analyze the situation. You have to be able to figure out what the fix is.
Exactly. And you're doing different stuff every day. Yeah. Right? It can be very rewarding, very interesting. Okay. I mean, fixing certain jobs fixing sewage spouting out of your toilet might not be the most fun, but it has to be done. Yeah, sure. Yeah. And there's other more rewarding parts to that job, maybe. But what I'm saying is, that message apparently doesn't reach the young generation, or not in time. Yeah. And then they have 4 or 5 years of college under their belt. For what?
Right.
They have a degree. Oh, wonderful. Now I have a degree. Now I need to earn $60K a year because I have a degree.
Yeah. So I can pay for those loans.
You need to find someone who pays you that much for something you can do.
Yeah.
Not because of your degree, but because of something you can do.
Or to really search out internships with different companies. Search out those journeyman possibilities with the craftsmen in your area that you can find. Yeah. And I just know, like, in general, I mean, we are producing, I feel like this is super philosophical for some leather crafters out there, but we'll see. We're producing so much waste product as a community of the earth. Mm-hmm. Like, you talk about fast fashion and how many literal megatons are going into landfills all the time because of you buy something that's semi well put together, you're going to wear it for a season and then you're going to throw it away. Yeah. And you're just creating all this waste. Where when you do something, when you make something out of leather, when you make something with your own hand, just like you said with those pair of boots that cost $20,000. Like, I mean, you can buy a pair of shoes that cost maybe $250. Sure. Yeah. It's a good pair of shoe. Yeah. It can last you for years. Exactly. You can have it repaired. Yeah. So, taking that thing, maybe it doesn't cost you $20 today, but that $20 pair of shoes is probably going to last you for 6 months before it breaks down anyways, and it's going to go in the trash. Right. Where, you save up, you buy that a little bit more expensive pair of shoe, and then you have it repaired in 5 or 10 years when it starts to break down. Right. And so I feel like really in the long run, you're saving money. You just have to make that initial investment or be, comfortable enough to build it yourself. Try something. Make something. Yeah. Well, that's the whole point here. Just make something. Yeah. All right. So let's see here. So you guys do adhesives at Renia. Yeah. That's your main thing. That's our main thing. We have a couple of other products, and you carry some of them. Some of them are more for other industries, but we make finishing wax. We make the absolute black, the leather dye. That's right. We make water-based adhesives, solvent-based adhesives. And what goes into this industry is a small portion of what we make. Right. So a couple of years ago, we took over a smaller company in southwestern Germany that focused a lot more on the shoe industry. So we integrated their production program into our own, and we've started to make some headway there. But only then we noticed, okay, we're missing this and this and this and this and this, and that we need to develop. And here we need to find someone who knows how to make it. Sure. So it's interesting. But so along those lines, one of my favorite products that you guys produce is the Aqualim 315. Mm-hmm. Yeah. From when I started in leathercraft, you had Bargain Masters, which are a solvent-based, very similar adhesive contact cement. And then you would have a couple other water-based ones. But you guys came on the scene with your 315 and going from a solvent-based to a water-based as a craftsman that works in my non-ventilated house in a room makes a really big difference. It does. It does. Health-wise and otherwise. But so recently, I know that that's a pretty popular product that we carry that a lot of people are using now. You started to kind of readjust because as you became a little bit of a leather craftsman these days, you started to dip your toe in. He just showed me his armor plate chest piece that was out in his car, which is pretty fantastic if you haven't seen it. So as you have started to do leathercraft, you have been finding ways to improve your own product, which I think is really cool.
Well, basically that's how this is done, right? I mean, no matter what industry we're talking about, the innovations, big word, they happen by using it, right? People use it, or people manufacture it in some cases, and they figure out, oh, I could do this better. This could be done better, and so on and so on. And the same with adhesives. Maybe these particular properties are not that great for this particular purpose. So let's change that, maybe. So one thing we're working on right now, it's been sort of a staple of water-based products from the beginning, right? They're great. They work just fine. They're highly stable. They have a long shelf life. Just don't let them freeze. Right. This whole just don't let them freeze rolls off my tongue. Like I don't even have to think about it because it's the kryptonite, right? Yeah. You don't do it. But actually we have, and it's not, I don't want to put on anybody else's merit crown here, but the method for making dispersions waterproof, we talked to our suppliers. We just asked them. And he said, yeah, sure, you can do this, right? You can add this compound there, and that basically, I'm going to get a little chemical here. I love it. what happens is this, right? I mean, water freezes at 32 degrees or 0 degrees Celsius. That's the Celsius scale. 0 is freezing, 100 is boiling. We find it easier to use, but of course you have your Fahrenheit degrees, and that's perfectly fine. So I think the way that Fahrenheit came up with this, he, little bit of an excursion here. So he wanted to base his temperature scale on absolute 0, right?
Okay.
Negative temperatures are just a mess. Right?
Yeah.
You have to worry about the sign and all, -10, +10. Oh, it could get lost in transmission or something. So for real scientists, we need absolute 0. So what he did, he was an experimental scientist. What he actually did was he measured temperatures. So he lived in, I think, East Prussia or Prussia at the time.
Okay.
Well, modern Germany. And the coldest temperature over several years that he ever measured was in, I think, the city of Danzig or something. And that was, what is nowadays 0 degrees Fahrenheit. So he measured for a couple more years. He didn't find any lower temperatures than that. He said, well, that's probably going to be the minimum. So let's just set it there. Well, he obviously never traveled to the North Pole or Siberia or Alaska or something like that. But he had to start somewhere. So he did that. And then he said, well, that's the 0. Now, the whole thing that Mr. Celsius was up to with the 0 degrees or with the 100 degrees between boiling water and freezing water, I mean, the boiling point and the freezing point of water are also something that are fixed, right? They don't change.
Right.
Well, with the same air pressure and so on, but at ground level, they don't change. So yeah, that is kind of important. But 100, okay. Why 100 as a difference, right?
Sure.
We're on the planet Earth, and the planet Earth has like 180 degrees longitude, right? Longitude and latitude, right? You have 180 north, 180 south.
Yeah.
Or no, actually 90 north, 90 south, right? 1/2.
Yes.
Thing. And then 180 west and 180 east. So the number 180 is obviously way more important than the number 100. So let's divide the space between freezing water and boiling water into 180 degrees. Add the 32 to absolute. I probably lost you somewhere there, but that's probably what happened to his kind of friends, and they just said, yeah, let's do it that way. Great idea.
Sounds like we need to recalibrate our maths.
Just saying, Celsius is actually there is an absolute scale, and there is an actual absolute 0.
Yeah.
So
that's what the real scientists probably use.
That's the real absolute 0. So what is temperature? And I mean, that is one point I kind of touch on when we talk about reactivating glue, right? What is temperature? Temperature is movement of molecules. Mm-hmm. So when all the molecules stop moving, the colder you get, the slower they get. So when they all stop moving, you obviously can't go any lower.
So that should be absolute 0.
That is absolute 0. So that's actually something you can calculate. And that's minus 273.15 or something Celsius. So pretty freaking cold.
Yeah, I would say so.
So that is that. So why do I use that in any presentations about glues? Because why can you use heat to reactivate glue? Right? You coated something with glue, and then it's dried completely. It's fully crystallized. It's not sticky anymore. So why is it useful to heat it to get it sticky again?
Okay.
Because heat means you're getting those molecules in there to wiggle again, and to become receptive again, to get out of a stable configuration into something that is receptive to other glue molecules on the other side.
So just like steel.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Well, from solid to, not as much of a difference there, but from solid to sort of liquidy.
Right.
That's the idea there. So, okay, circling back to the original topic there. Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
I always used to joke, there's probably one way to make the Aqualim freeze resistant, which would be by using radioactive self-heating water, which would be a little expensive and a little dangerous. So that's why we're not going to go there. Don't let it freeze. But we actually found that this additive, what it does is when water freezes, you form a block of ice, right? So all those little water molecules, they bunch up pretty close together and they form this ice crystal. Now, the adhesive particles are pretty large compared to molecules. So we're talking order of magnitude micrometers, and with a couple dozen micrometers, something like that.
Okay.
Now, don't ask me about how many inches that is. It's
very small. We're talking very small. Yeah, very small.
But even smaller, you go like micrometers, nanometers, picometers, and so on and so on and so on. A couple orders of magnitudes smaller are the actual structures in an ice crystal. Okay. So there is simply no room, right? So what happens when you have those big globs of adhesive molecules floating around in the little water molecules, once they form that ice crystal, they crush them. Right? And ice expands from plus 4 degrees Celsius, water starts expanding again. So that's the minimum density, and then it starts expanding again. So if you have a full glass of water, you freeze it, the ice is going to bulge out, right? Because ice takes more room than water, which is why ice floats.
Right.
So what happens there is that, there's this room there that something kind of soft occupies, let's fill that. So it's like squashes it. Now, what you do is you actually disrupt that ice crystal. So you put other stuff in there that prevents it from forming.
Whatever this compound is that you found.
That's what that does. So it sounds pretty simple. It's not. You have to find the right concentration.
It does not sound simple at all.
Okay. Sorry. I'm trying my very best here. But that's the general idea. We add something.
Okay.
And it will freeze, yes. But it thaws out.
It does not.
It does not destroy it.
Yeah.
So what we have found so far, and it's not suitable for every product we make, but it works very well with the 315.
Yeah. Well, and I know that you were also talking about, so in addition to solving the freezing problem, which makes your product really hard to move during wintertime.
Right.
That's always a fun thing for us. We have to watch the temperatures and be like, okay, is it going to be freezing over the weekend? We don't ship these packages, like we send them Mondays. And you also just for sending out things in general. But the other thing that you talked about was lowering the temperature or lowering the amount of pressure, I think, when you were here before.
We made it a bit more sticky, actually.
Yeah.
So the thing is this. I mean, if we're talking about making orthopedic insoles, if we're talking about putting soles on shoes, there's pressure involved, right? You have a vacuum press. You have a pneumatic press. You have some sort of machine that exerts pressure, I don't know, 15, 30, 45 PSI, whatever, over the whole surface and presses those two layers together. And that's generally how contact cements work. Any contact cement. That's where the contact in contact cement comes from. You have the two layers.
It's not just pinching it together?
Nah. Well, that is exerting pressure.
Right.
It's just a question of how much.
Right.
So depending on the raw material that the adhesive is based on, so for instance, polyurethane adhesives being used a lot in shoe industry, they're almost completely dull when you can stack them, right? You can coat parts and you can stack them. They wouldn't stick to each other.
Yeah.
Now, if you did that with a neoprene adhesive, you can stack them, but it wouldn't give you a good bond, but it will rip the adhesive layers when you try to prime a part. Okay. So it's not a good idea to do that, or it would attract dust, and the dust would kind of dull the surface. So that shoe industry adhesive will require a lot more pressure, and actually it will have to be reheated before then being bonded under a lot of pressure.
And so they put them in those little ovens.
Exactly.
And then they put them together.
Exactly.
And press them.
Now, is that a suitable leather crafting adhesive? Probably not, because you can't do all that. You could heat it with a heat gun, maybe, but do you have a pneumatic press at home? Probably not.
Right.
Now, there's projects you can hammer. And neoprene-based contact cements, they generally work well with hammering or with pressing or with clamping or whatever. But there's going to be jobs where you can't even do that.
Yeah.
And especially in crafting situations, there's going to be stuff you're going to have to press together just with your fingers. Yeah. And that can be a bit of an issue sometimes. So we looked at the formulation again. Well, we had to redo it anyway for the whole antifreeze kind of thing there. But we also try to make it a little more naturally sticky and to lengthen the open time a little bit. So you can still bond within a few minutes, 2 to 3 minutes. As it turns clear, you can bond. But you have at least until the next morning to actually stick the parts together if you want to wait that long.
Right.
Maybe you just coated something with glue and your wife tells you dinner's ready or something like that. I don't know.
And you forget about
or you
everything.
have to make dinner or whatever, something like that. You forget about it. Your favorite TV show is on. I don't know.
Right. Life happens.
Yeah. So it is possible to do that without reheating it.
Yeah.
So that's
very cool.
Another advantage. We're going to bring, it's not out yet. We're bringing over the first samples for people to test it, actually. We have run some tests. I have run some myself. We've run some in the lab. We've handed out a few samples out.
We have some. Yeah.
You have
we
some.
Got some.
Exactly. But the next sampling run is going to be a bit larger. So it's going to be spread out a bit more.
Yeah.
And then when everything checks out, we're going to have it.
Nice.
I hope before the end of the year.
Right.
Because that would take care of the whole winter shipping problem too. So
absolutely.
That would be kind of neat.
You're like, it would be good to be able to send stuff any time of year that I need it. Just do orders. All right. Let's see here. We covered that. So as far as the Renia line goes, what are some of your favorite adhesives that you like to use as you've started your crafting adventure?
Well, mostly as a contact cement, I'm using the 315.
Yeah.
Because, well, I mean, ever since we built the new house for me, my wife, and the kids, and the dog, we put a crafting workshop in. I mean, my wife, she knits and she's got a spinning wheel and she likes to sew and all of that. So there's a work area for her and there's one for me for my leather work. So I have a little more space, but of course, we're not talking really sophisticated ventilation or heavy machinery or any of that. I have a sewing machine now. It's very
nice.
Very
What'd you get?
Class 4.
Nice.
Well, actually, Leather Machine Company had shipped that one over to the Arnhem show, the Elwats, for, classes and demonstrations and whatnot. And I think it sat there for a year or two and left there on commission with Daniele.
Yeah.
You know her?
Yes.
She sold it to me. So that was fine.
Nice.
And it didn't have to haul it back in my suitcase all over the Atlantic. Would have raised a few eyebrows, I think, in customs. But yeah, so we did that. But I'm trying to mostly use water-based products, just as I can. There's one exception. That's the rubber cement as a pre-coat for embossing filler or cork filler.
Right.
We haven't really made, it kind of sort of works with 315. But the embossing filler or cork filler is going to be solvent-based anyway. We tried that, water-based. No, not a chance.
Not happy.
We tried it solvent-free. If you like to basically mash around in a bucket full of isocyanates, that's fine. That'll work. But those aren't too good for your health either. That was supposed to be an industry product, actually, which would have come with a machine that did the actual mixing and would have dispensed it and all of that. But then it basically think of a 2-component adhesive, right?
Yeah.
You mix the two parts and it starts reacting. The problem with that in any, application machine is you go on break and then you basically can use a hammer and chisel on your application machine to get it working again.
It is solid as a rock.
Yeah, pretty much. But not a...
That rubber-based cement that really... It keeps it still workable.
Exactly. That solution still exists on the solvent-based side. So I like using that. I like using the absolute black on my edges or for dyeing stuff
Anything black.
Yeah. Actually, I thought dyeing stuff black was easy. That's the easiest color you can do. That's what my dad told me, right? Because I asked him as a kid, right? Why don't we make any other colors? He said, because black is easy. You just have black pigment in there. You don't have to worry. Is it the right shade of brown or green or red or whatever? And no batch is ever exactly the same. And you have to adjust it. And all of this. Black is just black.
Well, and I know that your black is special. Let's talk about that.
Well, it's actually black. So the thing was when got a little deeper involved in leather crafting, I heard people talking, black is the hardest color to
It
get right.
streaks
It streaks, it rubs off. It's never truly black. There's like, I don't know, other pigments in there. And no, why would that happen?
Yeah,
black
when you get too much, then you have that oil spot look where you get the metallic purple and green and stuff.
Yeah. And I see now, I know where that is coming from, because it's a pigment mixture, and the pigments are actually relatively large. So they're dispersed in something, whatever, oil, alcohol, something like that. But what we do is we actually dissolve them in solvent. We treat them chemically so they can be dissolved. And it's just one pigment. It's just one black pigment that we do this with.
And that would be considered an aniline. Is that correct?
Not quite. Not quite. No. It's not aniline. It's...
I've been trying to brush up on my paint versus dye versus... I don't even know verbiage after talking to Herman for a while about things.
It's a pretty complicated chemical, actually. So it's a sort of a complex or a compound.
Okay.
So we take the actual dye, the actual pigment, and then that is cooked almost in another chemical, and then that forms these complexes that then can be dissolved in solvent. So that's the process there.
Does that mean like your black absolute does not need to be shaken?
No.
Because it's just completely like that is the substance in the bottle.
Exactly. Okay. Well, it's not just the dissolved pigment. It is in a solvent solution, basically, but it is stable. It doesn't separate or anything.
So that means you're not going to ever really leave any on top. We talk about when you dye something, there's a pigment that gets suspended on the top. If the carrier, so either your water or your alcohol, evaporates too quickly to pull all of the pigment into the leather, or you have too much pigment to pull in, then it gets suspended on top, which causes that bleed off, that crocking. But that doesn't happen with the absolute black.
Well, what can happen, and that's just a physical process in this case. So what you want it to do, and what it actually does, is it penetrates the leather fibers, and it actually soaks into the fibers. And that's why it is so stable. That's why it doesn't bleed out. Now, of course, those fibers can take a certain amount of dye, and then they're full. So whatever else you put on there is either going to sit between the fibers, or if it's like more and more and more and more and more, it's going to be on the top, and that will definitely rub off, bleed out, whatever. So the first thing you should practice a little with is get the amount, almost right.
Yeah. How do you do that? What's your standard for knowing how much dye is enough?
Well, basically, if not too much comes out. So what you do is you brush it on with a, dauber, brush, whatever, just one coat, see how it looks. Okay, that's the shade of black that I want. And usually one coat is sufficient. Then you just take a white cloth or anything like that. Tissue paper, whatever, and you buff it, right? Which is something you have to do anyway. You will always have to buff out the excess. Right. But depending on how much comes out there, you'll be like, oh, that was a little much. So that's why you try it on a scrap piece. But it's not that difficult to get right. But what you shouldn't use it exactly like you use your dyes that you have now. Okay. Because if you apply the same amount because, that's how you do it. Right. It's exactly the same discussion I have with Aqualim. It sticks to my sewing thread. It sticks to my needle. It doesn't dry properly. It doesn't stick properly. I say, have you looked at the layer thickness? How much are you putting on there? Yeah. Never thought about that. How much should I put on? I said, as thin as you can make it. Because if you're going to put on as much as you do with any other contact cement, even our solvent-based contact cements, we say not more than half, if not less, maybe a third of what you put on there, which is why it lasts a whole lot longer, right? If you buy 8 ounces of that stuff, you're going to go as far as about with maybe 20, 24 ounces of contact cement. Yeah. But there's this old saying, more works better, right? And it's basically only quoted to disprove it. So no, that doesn't apply here. So it most certainly doesn't apply there, because less is better. Well, enough is best, right? If you spread a drop over 10 square feet, no, that's not gonna work. But you need to have, and that's bonding 101. You need to contact bonding 101. On both sides, you need a closed layer of adhesive laying on top. And that's what you bond with. Now, some of that adhesive will seep into the leather. Now, if you have a very thinned out contact cement, for example, right? And some people like it thin, some come really thin. If it's intended for spraying, it is usually thinned down. So the first layer might disappear into the material. That doesn't mean it's wasted. It's still there and it serves a function. It anchors the second layer that is supposed to go on top. And actually in shoe industry, that's how they think.
Standard, right?
Pre-coat, main coat, pre-coat, main coat, pre-coat, main coat. That's sort of drilled into their heads. That's how they think. Even if you supply them with an adhesive that doesn't need a pre-coat. Oh, where's the pre-coat? I need the pre-coat. Okay, we'll give you the same stuff. We'll thin it down and that'll be your pre-coat. Wonderful. Well, that's how they're trained. That's how they work.
Yeah. When it comes to the Aqualim, if you have somebody that they feel like maybe what they have is a little too thick, can they put a little bit of water in it? How does that work?
Yeah, just water. Just put in a couple drops of water or a little bit more. Stir it really well, maybe shake it a little bit. Not too much at the same time, because
just a little bit.
Just a little bit. If you do it like 1-to-1 or something like that, you can break down the dispersion if you do it sort of too hastily. That it doesn't have time to adjust, but just a little bit.
So just a little bit at a time. Shake it up real good. Maybe let it sit for a minute and then see what you got. And then if you're like, okay, and just a little bit more.
When you open up the can for the first time and you think it's a little thick, just give it a try. Because it looks thick in the can. It feels thick in the can. But that's how it's supposed to be. It spreads out very, very, very thin. It's not like a big glob of glue. But that's actually intended in this case. Because that is one, and I'm not trying to bash anyone's product here, but that's just my impression of it. A lot of the water-based glues that I have seen in this country, in Germany, over in Europe, they're very runny. And maybe the idea is to get them to penetrate leather very well, which is fine. But there's other ways to achieve that. And of course, adjusting the viscosity is work, right? You have to change the formulation. You have to pick the right thickening agents and so on and so on. You have to get it right. You have to make it stable so it doesn't thicken over time and you just have that brick of glue in there. But if I have a water-based adhesive, I dip my brush in and it produces 20 or so drops over my priceless carving that I was going to put together with my wallet or whatever until I actually get to the spot that I want to glue. That's not going to convince me to use it. So, and it's just convenience, user convenience. And we try to improve that a little bit.
Well, and I know, especially with the Aqualim, whenever I apply it, like I use that silicone squeegee brush as opposed to, like in the barge or the master's can comes an actual like paint brush that you put it on, but that doesn't allow you to get it very thin. And so that silicone, you can really scrape the surface with that and just the least amount of glue being left on there. Don't leave. If you've got more, that's okay. Just run it off the edge. Have a piece of paper underneath, run it off the edge because you don't want that much on it because once again, you're going to cause the problems like the gumming up as you sew and all those things.
Well, and if it's too thick, I mean, the one advantage that you have with solvents is there's not just one. Sounds kind of trivial, but actually from a bonding standpoint, that's a big advantage because, well, you can use it to adjust the drying time. You take one that's a little faster, one that's a little slower. You combine the two, you sort of get to the medium level there. Now, the other thing you get with solvent-based products in this case, it's called evaporation cascade. So you have several solvents in there, in that glue layer. Let's exaggerate a little bit. So you have that glue layer on the material, and that is supposed to dry. So what happens? You have your air up here, right? Material down here. So it can only go up. The solvents can only go up into the air. So the fastest drying solvents in that uppermost layer, right? The uppermost little bit, they go first, right? And then the second fastest, and so on and so on and so on. But what about the stuff that's in the middle or at the bottom? Where can that go? So while there is still solvent evaporating in the uppermost layer, and that's going to be the super slow stuff, there are still channels open in that glue material up here that allow the solvents from beneath it to evaporate through them. So you need a thicker layer compared to water-based with the solvent-based adhesives because you have less bonding substance in them. And you have only about 20% solids in, let's say,
and the rest of it is the solvent.
Exactly.
Okay.
If you used more, it would get too thick. You couldn't spread it anymore.
Okay.
So you need to make a thicker layer. But the several solvents in there allow you to make a thicker layer because they keep that channel open, basically, right? Those vents.
Those vents open,
evaporation vents basically open for the solvent from the bottom to also get out. Now, with water, what happens? You just have one solvent or one medium in this case. So once all the water from the uppermost little layer is gone, you have a skin, and that's watertight.
Yeah.
So you seal it in. Now on leather, it's less of a problem because leather also
breathes.
Well, it takes some of the water away, and it absorbs it. And it actually it kind of wicks it away, right? Whereas an absorbent foam like polyurethane would just absorb it like a sponge, but it would remain there. So when you compress that to press the materials together for bonding, you just squeeze it out again, right, and push the bonding layer off. So yes, with leather you can afford a bit of a thicker coat, but again, you might have a dried surface on the leather, you might have a dried surface on top, and then a squishy bit of material in between. So also there, too much is not good. Just right is just right.
We want to be the perfect Goldilocks bear.
Yep. With glue.
With glue.
Don't eat it, though.
All right. So like I said at the beginning, every show we go to at the Renia booth, there is another section of armor there for us to see. I like to every spring when I head out to Sheridan, I always like to go by your booth and see what new things you've been working on. And so you are, one of these days, are you going to go to a reenactment? Are you going to use it? Or are you just going to build the armor?
Well, there's a couple of things at play there. So, I mean, first of all, it's fun, right?
Sure.
I'm talking to leather crafters here. Yes, it's fun. We do this for fun, for our amusement. We all, of course, some of us do it commercially, which of course makes a lot of sense, right? You want to make some of that money back you spent with these wonderful people here. So,
it's not the cheapest hobby.
No, it's not. Oh, I need that tool and I need that tool and I need some of that leather that I might never ever use, but it's so pretty.
Yeah, we're hoarders, us leather people.
Well, maybe one day I'll use it for something. So the cool thing about making armor in this case is you can use all sorts of crazy stuff on there.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I put alligator scoots on mine just because I can, right?
Yeah, you've got them on the helmet, right? And then you've got them on your cuffs.
Yeah. And a snapping turtle tail on top, just sort of. Now, the other idea there, and we'll still have to put it into practice. Of course, there is this, I mean, over here we have this huge, well, comparatively to Europe, huge crowd of Western-themed leather crafting, right? And then there's the Ren Fair fantasy LARP crowd. And a lot of that, not judging, just what I see, is relatively simple stuff. So a lot of foam, a lot of fabric and all of that, which is fine, right? I mean, it's all in your head anyway.
And there's definitely something to be said. Leather is very heavy.
It is, yeah.
And so sometimes you'll see those outfits that the cosplayers will build, and they are so intricate, and I can't even imagine having that. They're building it out of foam so that you could wear it all day, because otherwise armor is going to be like 100 pounds.
Well, and it's expensive. That's the other thing. So, but there is a subgroup, the people who actually do that LARP fighting stuff. stuff, right? Where they hit each other with foam swords, yes, but they still hurt.
Correct.
So they need actual armor. But there's a lot of other stuff. People who make bags for either themselves or for their friends or commercially or something, or flasks or whatever, right? Little things, larger things. So there is another market out there. And if we look over to Europe and especially Germany, the relations are kind of reversed, right? So the Western themed leather crafting over there is pretty small.
Yeah.
It exists, but you just don't find that many people there who do it, and you don't find many customers for it. Because another problem that I see in the German market for finished leather goods, cheap. I've never been in this situation, but I can sort of imagine it, where that friend of yours walks up to you and says, "Oh, you do leather, right? You make leather things. You know, I saw this cool wallet on Amazon, but it was so expensive. It was $20. I'm sure you can make it cheaper, right?"
Yes.
Yeah, go away.
I'm sure everyone listening just said amen.
I think everybody has a friend like that. Maybe. I don't know. Not judging, but they're out there.
No, definitely.
And that cheap mentality is very, very common, especially in Germany.
Yeah.
So finding people who are willing to pay for this kind of work is difficult, very, very difficult. Now, on the other hand, we have a pretty large role-playing, cosplaying LARP scene. And again, I mean, a lot of people are building this stuff for themselves. Yeah. Some very intricate, some very basic, but whatever they're having fun with. But the scene exists. So we've been trying to find the best approach to kind of go into that. So maybe some market research, maybe actually go to some of these events, some of these medieval markets or Renfests, Renfairs, whatever. And it might come in handy if you actually have something to dress up in.
So like we as Renia, you guys are trying to kind of move in and find yourself that clientele.
Right. First, look if it's actually there and how large it is potentially. Are we talking about, I don't know, 100 people buying a 2-ounce tube of glue each per year?
Right.
Okay, sorry. Not interested. You can buy what we have, but we're not going to make something special for you. But maybe it's a lot larger.
Yeah.
So we've never tried. We've never looked. So.
Well, I think that's really cool. And it is. I mean, everybody, it seems like right now, is costuming out for some event. You know, whether it's the LARPing, that kind of thing, whether it's the cosplay and they're being a anime character. I don't know. You know, you never know what you're going to find, but you can definitely, I know that a lot of the people that are doing the patterning right now, so we put out some patterns, but it's mostly kind of like bags, tack related, you know, things that Denny is interested in, which is the Western Sheridan situation. Love Denny. But you see a lot of the other what are the main pattern people that are doing Creative All, like those kind of companies. And they're coming out with just wild designs, you know, different helmet styles or hobby horse heads, which is one that I saw the other day. And we were all just like,
cool,
everybody needs a hobby horse head. Cause have you seen that? This is a tangent, but have you seen that that's a sport now? Like
it is. Okay.
Is that a thing in Germany? Have you seen that? Have you seen those girls running around with their hobby horses as a sport?
Well, I've seen my daughter run around with her little blow-up horse, but I didn't know it was a sport.
It's a thing. I don't know how I feel about it. I haven't.
She might be competitive with that, actually.
It's a thing. Oh, look, Germany holds. Look, you guys have the first championship.
Okay, I don't think I can ever unsee that.
Nope, you sure can't. This lives in my head rent-free.
Wonderful.
So that's what you need to go to next. And you can help all these lovely ladies make leather ones. What is happening in the world today, guys?
Okay, this might come out a little wrong and I might catch some flack for that. But those people definitely need water-based glues because the solvent-based aren't really working well for them. Excess glue sniffing can lead to
their heads.
Very profound consequences.
I'm glad I could share that with you today.
That was worth it. Okay. It's a perfectly legitimate sport. And again, I'm not trying to judge anybody here. We're not making fun of people. We're just having fun with them or something like that.
We can all, we should set up a course on Saturday and people can run it in the parking lot while they eat hot dogs. They can hobby
Aren't
horse.
those made from horse meat?
Probably. There's probably some of that in a hot dog. Who knows? We don't ask that question,
okay,
Rainer.
Good,
you don't ask
good,
what's in a hot dog.
Well, yeah.
That is, you don't read the package. You just eat it and just put it in your face.
Okay.
Well, I think that's really cool that you guys are trying to reach out and find the different fields. I mean, obviously, like you said, here in the States, kind of our leather world is centric around that kind of Western, but then you have the whole fashion world as well.
Yeah, that's it.
And frankly, for the fashion world, if you're doing things out of leather, you probably don't want solvent based.
Right.
I'm not a chemist. I don't know how all that works once it's all said and done and everything's dried, but I would.
Well, the chemicals in the dried product are pretty much the same.
Okay.
And also there, you can. Again, I don't want to get too chemical here, but for instance, there's certain resins. I mean, you need resins as tackifiers in neoprene adhesives. They make them sticky,
absolutely,
right?
100%.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there's ones that are a bit more prone to cause certain allergies, right? And some are not so
absolutely
risky there. So some of them are cheaper, some of them are more expensive. Exactly. So if it's just about cost, and unfortunately in the fashion industry, it is always about cost. If we're talking mass production, if we're talking bespoke stuff, if we're talking really expensive handmade items, it doesn't matter what the adhesive costs.
Right.
It's one tiny little piece of the expense there. But as soon as we're talking mass production, good friend of mine, she used to work for a tannery in Germany.
Okay.
One of the last. Well, a little bit like Herman Oak, right? I mean, they did oak bark tanning, pit tanning for sole bands, though. So it's a bit of a different process. But when I visited the Herman Oak tannery last year, I've seen that before. I've seen that machine. I've seen that process. Oh, this is a little bit different. So it's very, very interesting. But she said, well, I mean, she used to follow all the major brands. I'm not going to name names here, but all the major fashion brands, like the really cool stuff. Oh, I need to have a pair of shoes or a handbag or a purse from whatever. And she told me, well, since she got involved in the leather industry and mostly in the shoe component of all of that, not so much handbags and whatever, but I can confirm that from the handbag side. She learned how bad a lot of those constructions are and what really crappy materials they're using. Yeah. Not on the outside, not what you can see,
but on the inside.
But on the inside.
Yeah.
And it might seem really shiny and fancy on the outside, but then you wear them 3 times or 5 times and everything's fine. And that's about as many times as you're supposed to wear them. And you wear them 10 times. No. You don't want to do that because then they start falling apart in some cases. But she told me, and maybe exaggerating a little bit, she said, no, those brands, I don't want that anymore.
Never again. Yeah.
Never again. Because now she knows what actual leather is, how it's supposed to look like, how it's supposed to sort of feel and what it can do. And that's not what you get there.
Right.
So, and again, same with purses, with handbags and whatnot. I mean, I took a class about a year or 2 ago, also in Waco, handbag making, right? So I wanted to make a purse for my wife. And she liked it. But actually, the one I made in class ended up with my daughter. And I made her another one, but that's okay.
So this is my practice one, and I'll make you a better one.
Because, and the thing was, the teacher was doing a great job.
Yeah.
Perfect. Making do with what she had. But some of the material, the interface material Then I learned what interface is, right? The stuff you put in between, so your very thin snakeskin or whatever actually holds up. That looked like pretty thick cardboard or something like that.
A Bontex.
Which it is, but it wasn't supposed to be that thick. It was too thick. They'd given her the wrong kind. But it was really not very fun to work with to begin with.
Yeah.
And on that day, I made the decision, no, I'm not going to do that. Paper or cardboard has no place in a leather bag. Sure. Not in my opinion. And I'm going to spend a little bit more on like super thin 1 or 2 to 3 ounce veg tan or something to go in there.
Right.
But I'm going to do it. I don't care. I'm making these things as presents for friends and family, or I might even sell one.
Right.
But
you want somebody to cut it open and have a cardboard inside.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I want to give them something that I stand behind and say, okay, this is what I made and this is how it's supposed to be. The stitching's not going to look as perfect as the stuff from whatever brands are out there, but if you know what to look for.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It is a really interesting, I think there's a lot of misconception when it comes to manufacturing and doing things with leather. I know for us, there's a whole world out there of fashion leather, and that's where most of the leather is going. Yeah. Yeah. So when leather is produced in mass in the world, you're making shoes. First of all, ton for soling,
car interiors,
airplane
seats, a lot of that.
Yep. And then all your automotive and airplane stuff. Like that is where, gosh, I feel like Shep had a number at some point, but maybe like 75% of the leather in the world is produced. Shoes and then chairs of some sort, right. Automotive, airplanes, and then
living
upholstery.
Room.
Correct. Yeah. Right. And a very, very small portion of the leather that's produced in the world is going to crafters or bespoke things or even the high-end handbags, which, a lot of those you can kind of dig through some of the information that some of those companies have. And they even go to the farm itself and they might start at the farm to get, these farmers are producing meat. That's what they're doing. But the farm will be paid from the handbag manufacturer or the high-end whatever to keep their farms in these very specific things. Like don't use barbed wire. Don't do this kind of thing. Like let's not brand. Maybe we have ear tags. I don't know what the case is. But to keep these hides as pristine as possible. Which I think is also a really interesting thing about the leather industry or a material industry, if you will, and how we want leather to be perfect. Whatever like that means. Like people get upset about fat wrinkles or they don't like the characteristics that make a piece of leather. Right. They want almost a vinyl. They want
exactly.
And I don't understand.
If you want perfect, get patent leather. Right?
Exactly.
Now, of course, if we're talking about functionality, that's a whole different thing. You have a really deep brand or something on there. And you're not going to put that on the corner or on the edge because that's going to break. Yeah. But maybe that brand could be like on the front of your bag and it would look really great. Right. This is actually a piece of leather that was on a cow. Yeah. So...
And I think just like appreciating leather for that fact that it was an animal at one point that we then consumed as food, and this is a byproduct of that industry. Yeah, this is just the wrapper that your burger came in. But like it had a whole life. It lived outside. There were bugs. There was probably barbed wire for the ones that we get because we're not over here contracting with the farmers to not keep their cows in pens. Right. I don't know. And so when it comes to like, a lot of times I feel like your final, like someone that doesn't really understand the leather industry, your final consumer or a very new leather crafter has this really hard to get through preconceived idea of what a piece of leather needs to be. Right. And, or somebody that comes from a fabric industry that wants to go and buy yardage of something that's been manufactured in a mill and then coated with plastic. Yeah. Frankly, even if we're talking about, you've got PU leather, which is just reconstituted with a plastic coating. You said patent, that's a plastic coating.
It's even worse nowadays. I mean, they actually, one company lost a lawsuit over in Europe that they weren't allowed to call their product apple leather anymore.
Because it was mostly plastic?
Well, it is. Well, like I don't know, apple peel or whatever, ground up and then embedded in plastic on a polyurethane mostly, on I don't know, mesh or
on a fabric
synthetic fabric or something. Okay, if you want to use that, fine. If you want to sell it, okay, but don't call it leather. It's not leather.
Well, and you'll see that a lot. I mean, like the whole pleather situation or faux leather. I really don't like that. I'm like, we just
it's a fancy way of saying fake.
Yeah.
Literally, it is French for fake.
But they've got, like, nice. What is it? Pineapple leather. They're doing mushroom leather. Like they're trying to do all of these.
Or whatever.
Right. Other leathers. But at this point in the process, it's still just mostly plastic.
Yeah.
So at some point you're like, we still eat a lot of meat.
We do.
The world is consuming a lot of meat.
So what are you going to do? Throw the hides away?
Exactly. Yeah. So I think there's kind of like you got the cart before the horse in a situation where you're complaining about the leather, but there's this whole other industry that's going to keep turning whether we make leather out of it or not.
And the other thing is, and again, this may be a little, I don't know, philosophical or something, but call things by their names.
Yeah.
So if you like this material, whatever you want to call it, made from cactus and plastic or mushrooms and plastic, okay, that's all right. You want to use it? Fine. You want to make it? You want to sell it? That's okay. But call it
mushroom vinyl
or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And don't try to hitch on to something else, because if you call it mushroom leather, you kind of imply, it's like leather,
right?
But we didn't harm any animals for it,
right?
And again, I'm not bashing the product here. It might have its place, yes, but call it what it is,
right?
Well, I mean that kind of bleeds into the whole vegan thing, right? I mean, if you want to make something that is not made from animals, made from plants, okay, it's all right. If you want to eat that, fine. I eat pasta, right, without eggs, and that's made from plants. I don't care. I eat salads. That's all right.
That's okay.
And I also like a piece of meat, and that's my personal choice.
Right.
But if I see stuff in a store that's labeled, I don't know, vegan meat or plant-based meat or something, no, it's not. It's not meat. Sorry.
Right. But call it a mushroom patty.
Sure, do that or
whatever.
Come up with some sort of fancy name. And again, it kind of leads a little bit out of the leather work.
Patty? I don't know. What is it? What is faux meat? What is it?
And it might be delicious, possibly.
Yeah.
But again, that ties back into the whole philosophical and the naming sphere here. How can it stand on its own as a product?
Right.
If you tie it to something else, it's like meat, it's like leather, but it's da-da-da-da-da-da.
Well, and at the end of the day, really with these other leathers that they're out there making, it's really just a more complex vinyl.
Yeah.
And right now they're very expensive products that they're producing because where do you get the apple peels?
It uses more energy. It uses more fossil resources, right? Because you need to make the plastic.
And it's probably not going to have nearly the longevity of an actual piece of leather that you could use for your whole life. And as long as you treat it every once in a while and take care of it, you could probably pass it down to your kids. And you're going to have this much where
And even though we don't want to really see that happen to a beautiful piece made from leather, it is biodegradable because it is a biologic material. So it will be eaten by something at some point.
Right. It can be broken down.
It can be broken down.
It's not going to turn into microplastics in our water.
No. So, yeah.
It's complicated. Let me see. One thing I wanted to ask you, are there any cool German tanneries that the world should know about?
Well, the one that I really liked, well, it's not personal, but actually it is personal. It's been a personal relationship for a few generations. That was the Rentenbach Tannery in Trier. And I'm actually still friends with the former owner because they went out of business in 21.
Oh, bummer.
Really traditional soul band pit tanning in Trier. So that business, or that part of the business, moved over to Kilger in Bavaria. They also do that. They do pit tanning. They do some drum tanning. And and they actually mostly work for the equine industry.
Sure.
A lot of saddle leather, but mostly going towards like English saddles and whatnot. And that's more popular in Europe.
Right.
They have a bit of a soling line still. They basically produce the Rentenbach leather now. They're not really into tooling leather. I talked to them about that because, yeah, sure. I mean, just out of interest, they said, yeah, but that's mostly a US thing. And there's Herman Oak. So we kind of don't want to mess with them. They have this. They can take care of that market. That's fine. But and they're busy. That's the other thing. So
yeah, they've got business. They're doing okay.
The companies that are still doing this kind of thing and that are still successful, they have their hands full usually because they're doing something right. There's
how many tanneries are there in Germany? Do you know?
Not that many. For veg tan, I would say 2.
Okay.
So Kilger and there's Martin
like the
Leather.
US, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. It's not a huge market anymore.
Yeah.
And then there's a few that make like chrome tan for upholstery and shoe uppers and whatnot. A couple, but not that many. Most of that has moved way out of Europe decades ago.
Clean water.
Yeah, well, I mean, you don't want to live downstream from the tannery.
Yeah.
If you can avoid that. Unless you spend as much as on water cleaning and whatnot as Herman Oak and tanneries in Germany do. They have to. Yeah. Otherwise, they couldn't survive anymore.
Yeah. You know, water is important.
That it is.
We do need it.
So. For water-based adhesives.
Exactly.
And for drinking.
For water-based
occasionally. And showering every now and again, I guess. So
let's see here. Well, Rainer, is there anything else that you would like to mention while I've got you here?
Well, nothing comes to mind right now. Except thank you a lot. Thanks a lot for the opportunity.
Yeah, this has been a lot of fun. You were very fascinating to talk to. I am not a chemist, but I enjoy the conversation around how things work. It was a couple weeks ago, I was talking to Adam with Herman Oak, and I was saying something about a pigment, and he was like, no. We don't have those. Like we use aniline dyes. And so then it just started me down this whole rabbit hole of Googling and trying to figure out, okay, what is the correct verbiage when I'm talking about dyeing things, a tannery dyeing things, how it penetrates versus sits on top, and all of these very kind of specific things that I didn't realize were quite as important, you know, to be specific about when you're talking about the different kinds of finishes that you could have on a leather, different kinds of ways to process a piece of leather.
Actually, in the chemical world, there's 2 aspects now. Well, there always were, but the one aspect has become more and more important. I mean, the first is, of course, making it work, right? So changing one atom in a molecule might move it from, oh, this works to, oh, no, whoever came up with that idea. But the second aspect has become more and more and more important. And that is, what are we still allowed to do? So there might be a very, very minute change from one, in this case, dye or tanning agent or whatever, to the other, which turns it cancerogenic or which turns it totally toxic to fish or
whatever
people.
Yeah.
So it's banned, and for a good reason. I'm not complaining about that because I want clean water. I want clean air. And my mom actually grows vegetables behind the glue factory, so I want to eat those.
You don't want radioactive vegetables?
No, not even. Well, they glow in the dark. They're easy to find if the fridge light goes out, but that's pretty much the only advantage to it.
Those tomatoes are real special.
But it's difficult. It's gotten more and more difficult. We have the same issues.
Well, and I think as we get smarter and as we can break things down farther, and I feel like the science community is finding new compounds all the time or determining how this can work in that or this can process this. You have to start looking about, okay, well, how is this actually going to affect something in the long run.
Sure.
What is this going to do to somebody sitting in a room smelling this as they use it? You know, like, are we going to eat holes in people's lungs if this process keeps going? So
the one thing we have to keep in mind, though, is trade-offs, because yes, we want things to be safe and clean and healthy and so on and so on. And I agree. I absolutely agree. That's wonderful. Yeah. But there will have to be a chemical industry, and chemicals that are reactive and that are useful in manufacturing stuff are hazardous in many cases, even for making the water-based adhesive, for making the raw materials for that. And that's not what we do at our factory, but that is what is being done at huge chemical manufacturers. Some of them in Germany, some of them in the US, some of them in China, and Japan, whatever. But they use some pretty toxic chemicals. Yeah. And they have to, because that's how it works. Now, of course, they should make sure that none of that is then emitted to the environment. Right. But banning the chemicals is not the answer, because they're needed. They're needed to make a safe product, which is safe for the user in the end. But in the process, you need those super dangerous chemicals under proper containment, which is the way it's being done, because the factory doesn't want to hire new workers every 2 weeks. Among other things. I'm not talking about liability and all of that here, but yeah, I mean, I'm joking, but there's, of course, nobody wants to work in a factory where people are exposed to hazardous chemicals. Right.
That's why we don't have people painting watch faces anymore and licking brushes.
Pretty much.
Yeah, because then,
the Mad Hatter, right? That thing, that was mercury, actually.
Yeah.
But there's ways to handle those chemicals.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and that's the way that politicians think about it. Oh, it's dangerous. We have to ban it. They have no idea how the process works. They want the outcome.
They're not getting a full conversation.
They want the finished goods, and they want them to be made in America, in Germany, in France, wherever. But in order to make those goods, if you ban everything that we need to make them, we're not going to make them here. We're going to make them wherever we can, right?
And somewhere where there's not going to be very much regulation, and you might have pretty big consequences to that.
And that water that goes into the river next to the factory in Whateveristan will flow into the ocean and will flow right to your doorstep. So have you achieved anything?
We're all connected, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which is, I mean, that's why it's so important to have people that know what they're talking about in those conversations.
Oh, yeah.
Make that. Well, that was a pretty high end to the conversation.
I like my rabbit holes. I'm sorry.
No, all of this is very important. We're, the leather craft community that we're in, we are not industry necessarily. Yeah. We are kind of like the last, even Herman Oak is very, very small portion of overall leather production in the world, overall usage. But I think it's really important to understand how what we're working with and what we're making, like you might be making some products for this very small craft community, but your main business is not this.
It is growing, yes, but it's not the main part of the business,
right.
Yes.
Your main part is going to be this much bigger industry that affects a much larger scale of people and product. And it's good to understand that where we are is kind of like this offshoot on the main river of leather manufacturing across the world,
But, and that I think is a great way to wrap this up. This is an important industry. And I don't want to pat myself on the back here, but there's other companies like that as well, like Herman Oak, like Fiebings, like Angelus, right? Like tool companies and so on and so on, where it's not just an offshoot. This is an important part of their business because they're small companies. Right. They're family owned in some cases, or just, they've been around forever. And they're relatively small compared to huge corporations. Right. For them, it would be an offshoot. For us, it's an important market. And that is why we bother. And that is why those companies bother. And that's why they come to leather shows. That's why they do things like this. That's why they offer trainings and so on and so on and so on, because for them it is important.
Well, and we are also so close to, your end user.
Yes.
Like a person making a pair of Nikes over there, they're not close to the end. There's another like 5 distribution centers before it gets to the end user.
Right.
And so you have this huge degree of separation between this factory that just churns just millions and millions and millions of things out to go everywhere versus, me, Liz, or you, Rainer, that's going to make a knife sheath for a dude that has a knife.
Yeah.
Or, some arm guards for somebody that wants to go combat something. And so just really having the scale behind you of even though you're doing something that's small and niche, like I feel like it makes a huge difference in the community and in your world, being able to provide something that's going to last a long time for someone that you can be proud of, that they know who made it. You know where your leather came from.
Guy.
Like when I buy leather from Herman Oak, I know that it's U.S. steers that were processed probably at a butcher house in Nebraska.
Yeah.
Like there's this really close chain where for most of the items that we get in the world, the chain is so huge. And it's really
and
unfathomable.
It makes it more difficult to form a relationship to that object that you just bought in a store, and you only bought it there because you couldn't find it cheaper online or something like that. So that's your relationship to that. You bought it because it was cheap. Oh, I like the color. Great. I'm going to wear it 5 times and then I'll toss it. But you bought that wallet from your friend who made it, with tools he bought from that guy, and leather he bought from that guy, and so on and so on. It's a whole different kind of relationship to that item.
You got a set of Barry King tools made up in Sheridan. Yeah, like it's
so you're going to
really
treat that item in a different way.
Absolutely.
And in a much more, big word coming in, sustainable way.
Yeah.
You're going to take care of it. You're going to cherish it. You're going to hold on to it. You're not going to just throw it away when you see another one where you like the colors a little bit more.
Right.
So, yeah. And is that the way to produce everything we need? I don't think so, because we're 8 billion people on this planet. It's not going to work that way. But some things.
Right.
Maybe.
And the more that we can do that, the less we need the things that are pulling all the resources out of everywhere.
Yep.
Alrighty. Well, I super appreciate you stopping in on your way from Texas to Atlanta. So I know you're going to make a big smiley face here.
A bit of a detour. But
a bit of a detour. Thank you so much for coming in, and it's been a blast.
It has.
All right. Bye, guys. Well, that wrapped up our very first episode of the Make Something podcast from Springfield Leather Company. A huge thank you to Rainer for joining us and sharing his knowledge and passion for the craft. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. And of course, keep creating, keep exploring, and most importantly, make something. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.